recording for those who could not make it. So I will also post that under this week's schedule, so you can see that there. We're in week 11, so we're getting close. So welcome everyone to the NNGO capstone class. For those of you who are visiting or not in the class, welcome. For those of you capstone students, hopefully this will be a nice little break from your working on your capstone or your other classes that are going on. I did put up the graphic that we sent around to folks about who is on the online conversation today, the 5 alumni that we have today. But I also wanted to share a couple of other things that you've probably seen, but just a few reminders. We have several community online chats going on this week. Julianne did one yesterday. Tonight the GAs are going to chat if you're up late at night and want something to do to connect with some students. Caleb is doing his Coffee with Caleb tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Dr. Heidemann is running this week's faculty chat, talking about things that are in the news. And then I'm going to do another recorded video. I'll release that on Friday morning or Thursday evening, depending on when I can get it done. I'll send it out just to kind of recap things that are going on at NIU, or things that I think you guys should know as we go into the weekend. A couple of other things. This week I released one of my podcast episodes on Native American philanthropy. If you're able to join us when I did that, that was actually recorded live when Joanne Stately was here in February. So I just released that. You can find it on your local podcast platforms, whatever you have. If you do, it'll come up. And then another reminder, we're using the Remind app so that we can send text messages out to students. So if you want to join, you don't share your cell phone numbers. It's a subscription thing, and you can unsubscribe at any time. Your cell phone numbers are never collected or anything. I did send out a couple of reminders over the last couple of weeks of things to just be aware of, interesting videos, that kind of stuff. So if you want to sign up for that, that's how you can join. And then just a reminder about the importance of self-care at this time. You know, we're all stuck indoors. It's a little bit nicer out the last couple days. So if you're able to get outside, at least for a short walk, something like that, do remind yourself that this is not a normal time. You're feeling stressed, less motivated, maybe lethargic, want to sleep more, pull the covers up. So know that that's normal, and that all of us are feeling the exact same way. And it is hard to kind of continue on with things we need to get done. So know that your faculty and certainly the center are here to support you and all that you're trying to accomplish and finish out the year. If we can offer any advice, offer any suggestions, walk through some of the changes and policies that will help you, whether that's looking at what it might mean to go to an SU grade versus a letter grade. So reach out to Stephanie. I know many of our majors have already reached out to her to do your scheduling for summer and fall classes. So just remember to be kind to yourself during this time. Okay, so let me go back to our alumni panel. There we go. You can chat with everyone, so I'll remind you in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see the purple arrows. If you click on that, the chat function pops out. If you chat in there, everyone can see what you're writing, so feel free to add any questions for our panelists as we go. The other thing, you can also chat with me individually, so you can send it to just one person that's online here today. So you don't have to send it to everyone. So you can see your video and your mic is at the bottom. It's a toggle on, toggle off kind of thing. Right now I have everyone muted. Just it'll make the be able to hear everyone a little bit easier. But as we start chatting, you can also turn those on if you have questions. Again, you can use a chat function, or you can raise your hand. It's in the middle of your screen at the bottom. There's a little person with their hand sticking up. So if you click that, I know that you have something to say and you want me to call on you. So please use that service as well. All right, so what I thought we would do is I invited several alumni over the past couple of weeks and coming forward, their experiences of the transition from bachelor's to workforce. So the panelists today went from their degree into their careers, and I would like them to each introduce themselves. You can see what their titles are right now, but kind of how they got to where they are. We'll do this you guys can take 2 or 3 minutes to do that. And then I have some general questions that we can chit out, or you can also type into the chat. So I want to welcome the 5 alumni that we have on the line today. Thank you for coming. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day. You're all working busily for nonprofit organizations, which are also dealing with all of the stress of the current public health crisis that we're in. So I appreciate you taking the time to do that. So Kayla, why don't we kick off with you? We'll just go in order here. Go ahead and turn on your video if you have it, or your mic, and you can take a couple of minutes, introduce yourself and let us know kind of how you got to where you are right now. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Let's see. All right, share.
There you are.
All right, perfect. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Dr. Fetterman, you can tell. Okay,
Yep.
perfect. Great. So good afternoon, good morning. My name is Kayla Furjanik, and I am the Giving Programs Coordinator at the Morton Arboretum. I graduated from NIU in 2015, which seems like a long time ago. I started my career as an AmeriCorps member, and I worked with the organization Cradles to Crayons, which is in the city of Chicago in the Logan Square neighborhood. I started there being volunteer coordinator and kind of being a jack of all trades, as I'm sure many of the fellow alumni on this call have experienced that shared role. And then from there, I joined our development team, and I focused strictly on corporate and family fundraising with a side of volunteerism as well. And then about a year and a half ago, I decided I wanted to change of pace. I've always loved the Morton Arboretum, and working for an environmentally focused organization anyway was right up my alley. Found this opportunity with the Morton Arboretum and decided to change it up a little bit. And so I started there in 2018 as their Giving Programs Coordinator, and I have a split role, which is working with corporate fundraising, and the other half is the annual fund program, so managing that and working in our development team there. So I'm excited to hear about our questions, and please know that all of us alumni are feeling for you all. You will all get through this and just fine. So looking forward to hearing your questions.
Thanks, Kayla. Okay, Gretchen, you want to join us, video and or audio?
Let's see.
There you are.
Hi there. My name is Gretchen Sprinkle. You probably hear my 3-year-old and my 10-month-old in the background, so I apologize for that. I graduated from NIU in May of 2014 when it was still the CLCE degree. I actually started the MPA program the following fall, and it just wasn't a good fit for me. But since I was interning with the DeKalb County Community as part of the MPA program, I made a lot of connections to local nonprofits. So I moved into an office manager role at Family Service Agency of DeKalb County, and then from there I moved to Kishwaukee United Way, and I'm the finance assistant there. But as in most nonprofits, there's a lot of other duties as assigned. And that's definitely not a role I would have ever thought when I was at NIU I would be in. I thought for sure I wanted to work with volunteers. I wanted to, really be in some sort of programmatic role. But I found that I really enjoy and I'm good at the back end stuff. So don't write off the financial positions, the office support positions, because you're still helping just as many people. So yeah, I guess that's it in a nutshell, and I look forward to answering whatever questions you guys have.
Thanks, Gretchen. Okay, Tori, do you want to turn on your audio and video? If you have.
Sure, let's see. All right.
There you are.
All right, awesome. I'm sorry, guys, my internet is a little bit bad right now, but it's nice to see all of you guys here. I'm sorry that you're having to do this on your senior year. So a little bit about what I do. I graduated from the CLCE program in 2016. From there, I started almost right away as an administrative assistant with the Aurora Food Pantry, and that's kind of where I found out my love for development and fundraising and all that. I always found that ironic because I hated doing all the fundraising in school, but it's very, very different. And right now, I'm at Aspire Chicago. It's a disability nonprofit closer to the city. And what I do is I'm the donor relations liaison. So I help build different sorts of platforms to kind of make the donor experience a lot better for them. So in a nutshell, that's what I do.
That's perfect, Tori. Thank you very much. Jill, do you want to turn on your video and audio?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yep, you're good.
Awesome. So I graduated from NIU in 2016 from the CLCE program. From there, I was hired as an AmeriCorps with DuPage Habitat for Humanity, doing neighborhood revitalization, so kind of grassroots on the ground surveys, going door to door and trying to get the community to come together. After my AmeriCorps year, they hired me on full-time as community engagement coordinator. So it was a mix between neighborhood revitalization, which was what I was doing, and family services, so collecting applications for our homeownership program. And then about 6 months later, they changed my role and I became family services manager, which means that I handle the applications and vetting for both of our programs, so the home ownership program and home repair program.
Thank you, Jill.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon, you might be calling in because I don't see your name, so you might be on the phone. Let's see if you are on your phone. Maybe. I know he was having some internet difficulties earlier this morning. Maybe not. Okay, well, that's okay. Do you guys all, so of the four that are here, do you guys want to turn on your cameras so we can see you? And then we'll just kind of have round robin some questions. You don't have to, you can leave your mic off for now. It might be easier because I know we're going to have some internet issues no matter what we do. And this is the struggle with online education, which all of our students are realizing. First, it's the presenter side, but then it's on the other side. So if you're on Wi-Fi with four roommates at the same time, it could be a challenge to get good Wi-Fi. All right, so from the introductions that we had, I want students to take a minute and type in a question into the chat room or raise your hand if you have a specific question. But some of you mentioned, and maybe I'll just kick it off, some of you mentioned this isn't necessarily where you saw your career going when you're in school. Is there something that changed to kind of make the decision of where you want to be where you are today? So when you were in school, you might have had one path. Was it just that opportunities presented themselves and you took a chance? Or did you have an experience like an internship or a first job or something that said, no, I'm more on the program side, or no, I'm more on the policy side, which I think are the three kind of big areas where our students tend to go to. And I don't know who wants to take that one first. Any of our presenters can, and maybe it might be easier if you're a presenter, you can raise your hand too, because then I know who is interested in talking rather than just go like round robin. So Gretchen, do you want to take a shot?
Yeah, so I did not want to be sitting behind Excel spreadsheets and QuickBooks all day. When I was a student, I thought that was really boring. I hated reading operating budgets.
I think I remember that from the finance class that I taught, Gretchen.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm really grateful for that experience. It gave me a lot of skills I didn't know I would need. But when I was in my internship at the community foundation, I had a chance to work with some of those tools more, and they started to feel kind of fun. And I saw how important it was to have that data available to make decisions. And it was more something I just kind of fell into. It was in my wheelhouse, and I hadn't known that before. So it was that experience that got me more interested in that.
And Tori, what kind of made you choose the path that you're on right now? Was it experience or something else?
Sorry.
That's okay.
When I was originally in school, I wanted to do more volunteer coordination. And then I started to slowly realize as I started to talk to other volunteer coordinators that wasn't really for me. And then I started to think, well, maybe I want to do more of the program side of things. So when I graduated, and got the job at the food pantry. I tried to do a little bit more on that on the operational side, and then I actually realized that I had a lot of fun helping out our our fundraiser do the Giving Tuesday things. So, and I found out that a lot of fundraising doesn't have to be just the face-to-face solicitations. It can be a lot more of the fun things that, the reaching out and thanking them in creative ways. So that's kind of how I found my path to fundraising.
Awesome. And Jill, your experience?
So when I started after CLC 100, which I think is now an NGO 100, at the end they had us create a nonprofit and kind of give a presentation on it. That's where I fell in love with like literacy and helping people find literacy who needed that kind of education. So when I graduated, I was like, I'm going to work for a literacy nonprofit. I'd be, in boots on the ground there. And a piece of that is where I started with Habitat. One of the focuses for the Neighborhood Revitalization Initiative was literacy and kind of increasing literacy in the neighborhood. But as I got to know the families in the program and the programs that Habitat offered and the lack of affordable housing in DuPage County is kind of where I took a turn, and now a lot more of my passion is finding and helping families find affordable housing, throughout the state, but specifically in DuPage County.
So it seems like you probably always knew you wanted to work with maybe a disadvantaged population, and whether that was literacy or housing, you're still kind of in that same realm.
Right. Just finding it's just a different way of meeting them, and I think that it's more of how I've used my skills over the last 4 years, and that better serves me with affordable housing now.
And Kayla?
So very similar to Tori, I was most interested in the programmatic and volunteer side of what nonprofits do. I love to talk, I love to connect with people, and I love to bring them closer to the mission, but I quickly realized that I was most interested in the fundraising aspect, which is funny because all 4 years I knew I would never be a fundraiser, so it's kind of funny where life takes you. And I always say it's most important to find things that you don't gel with or you don't really find are meeting your needs, to tack those off the list rather than something that you know for sure or you think you know for sure that you're going to be in love with. So I never really wrote off fundraising, but all 4 years during my undergrad, I thought that there would be no way. So slowly but surely started to kind of dip my toes into it and realize that really everybody across the board at a nonprofit organization does some way, shape, or form is a part of a fundraising team. You're called on for a lot, and I was really drawn to making connections with corporations and families and individuals that are really passionate about our mission and want to take their engagement and involvement to the next level. So I really found myself being interested in building those relationships and finding ways that they can feel connected and bring them closer and overall just support the mission at hand, whether that be with Cradles to Crayons and getting them involved and their children involved with volunteerism and then having them donate product for the kids that we were serving or making a financial contribution and joining our board, or at the Arboretum, somebody who's been a member for years and really wants to take their support beyond their membership and wants to donate to our annual fund or is interested in having their corporate group come in to volunteer, whatever it might be. So I would strongly suggest not writing off something that you think you might not be interested in until you get your feet wet with an internship or through your classwork, because you never know what you might be most successful in.
Thank you. And Brandon, I know you've joined us, so why don't you do your introduction?
Can you guys see me? All right.
Yes, we can. Thank you. That's all right.
So my name is Brandon Pugh. I am the Event Services Director and Volunteer Coordinator at the Egyptian Theater. I graduated with my CLC degree in May of 2016 and started shortly thereafter at the Egyptian part-time as house manager. So I work part-time at the Egyptian, part-time in retail. as the event services director and took on the volunteer coordination role. So in my role, I handle all the front of house, concessions, ticket taking, ushering. I handle the hospitality for the artists when we have them. And then I recruit and train all of the volunteers that work our show. We're a staff of 6, have about 90 volunteers that I oversee. And as Gretchen mentioned earlier, when I was just listening in, other duties that are assigned. So, you know, so I'm here for you guys if you have questions for me. So.
Thank you. So
You're
something that you guys, a couple things that you guys mentioned, all of you might not have started in a full-time position. Some of you started part-time, and I've also counseled students sometimes to look at temporary positions, contract positions. So I don't know if anyone want to specifically comment on that, but as students are looking for their full-time jobs, maybe if you have thoughts or suggestions on kind of that job search and keeping it open to maybe non-traditional paths. And presenters, you can just raise your hand so I know who wants to chime in. Tori, go ahead.
So hey guys, so like I said, I started off with just starting out as an administrative assistant. I was starting to apply for kind of any nonprofit job, and an admin assistant, really, you know what it is. It's more office work, and it's not really programmatic work, and it's not fundraising work at all. But I worked closely with my boss. I let her know, she knew the degree program I had and the interest that I had. And when you work with your supervisor and everything, you can tell them that, this is where your interests lie. This is kind of where you want to grow into your role. And that's kind of how she found out that, hey, I was actually doing pretty good with development work. So she started to give me a little bit more and a little bit more. So I definitely encourage you guys to just apply for a job if it's a nonprofit, especially if it's one that you're passionate about and it kind of goes with your ideologies and all of that. I would definitely go for it because they can really build a role for you.
Thank you, Tori. Kayla.
Great. So I started my career, I think I mentioned, with an AmeriCorps program, which I don't know how much you have honed in on this yet, Dr. Shannon, but
a little bit. Yeah, we had someone come and talk to them a little bit about AmeriCorps and what the advantages are there, but maybe not as much from what after AmeriCorps, kind of what does it lead to. So yeah, feel free to comment on that part.
Sure. So from there, the organization that I was doing my program through was Cradles to Crayons, and they were able to, just like Tori said, build a position. Year by year that goes on, they're typically able to weigh out their staff needs and where the AmeriCorps graduates might fit in best. And we were just starting our volunteer program. Because I was there with the organization before we had moved into our official space. So it was kind of right place, right time. But I definitely recommend, if you're going to be in a program like that, to keep the conversation open. If you know that that's an institution that you want to work for after your service year, really keep that line of communication open. It doesn't always happen, but that experience that you'll get will take you to your next job pretty easily. But definitely communicate well with your supervisor, your manager, whoever it might be, just to let them know if you are interested in staying with the organization. I think communication is key in something like that.
Thank you. Jill?
I'm just gonna piggyback off of Kayla. I also did a year of AmeriCorps with DuPage Habitat before they hired me on full time, and I kind of looked at it as a year-long interview with the organization, kind of showing them what I'm capable of and that I would be an asset to their organization. So definitely, like Kayla said, share your passions and kind of where you want to go and your goals with your supervisor and the organization. Because even if they don't have a position for you there, they might know another organization you might fit in well with. So, even though if you're not totally passionate about what you're doing after the first 2 or 3 months, you're like, well, this isn't for me, I would still keep doing your best and show them that even though it's not something you're completely passionate about, you're willing to do your job to the best of your ability, and they can help recommend you to another organization that they're familiar with.
Thank you very much. So one of the other things that I think is really important is this notion of kind of a career mentor. And so I don't know if any of you want to comment on who do you go to get advice on, is this a good career move? Should I be here for another year and a half to get some experience? Should I wait? Should I go back to school? Like, how do you find those career mentors, and who do you think are your career mentors? So Gretchen, you have a thought.
Hi.
Who are we hearing? You have to let us know. Who are we hearing?
That's Libby. She's 10 months old, and she has not taken a nap this morning. Anyway, so my career mentor is now my boss, John Littlefield, but she originally wasn't my boss when she started mentoring me. And I use that word, but it was never in a formal sense. She was on a committee I was also on when I was interning with the Community Foundation, and she was just very welcoming, and she, asked me about what I wanted to do, and she's just been a really good person to bounce ideas off of. It's great to now work for her because she'll make suggestions, or hey, have you thought about doing this? Or when I thought about, is this MPA program a good fit for me? Do I need it right now? It was well, you can always go back and get it later if you need it. You probably don't need it right now if you're working in this area, in this field. But I guess my suggestion is just try to be social. It doesn't come naturally to me to be very social. But when you're in those committee settings, if you're in an internship, if you're volunteering, there might be somebody there who takes an interest in you and is willing to help you.
Thank you. Jill, you have a thought on mentors?
Yes. So I actually would say I have two mentors. The first is Julianne. She was my advisor throughout the 4 years I was in the program. So she really helped coach me through undergrad and kind of knew what my interests were. At that time, she was also on the board of DuPage Habitat and had kept me in mind about the open position. So that's kind of how I got started. So definitely stay close to Dr. Shedeman and Julianne and Stephanie and the GAs. They're great resources that can help you on your path after you graduate. And then in my current role, my supervisor, who's been my supervisor since she's been the same supervisor all 4 years that I've had. We work really closely together, and I'm able to be honest with her about what my goals are, and she kind of gives me that guidance to reach those goals. So like Gretchen said, just have an open mind and get in touch with those that are around you.
Thank you. Brandon, did you have a comment about mentors?
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of what Jill just said. Julianne was a stellar person to talk to when I needed advice on anything. So keeping your professors close at hand for letters of recommendation. They can be more than just advice to you. They can write you letters of rec and stuff like that. But in echoing what Gretchen and Jill said, my current supervisor, Alex, is the executive director. He was the supervisor there when I was going through the DCNP internship. So, we've been able to have honest conversations that I probably wouldn't have been able to have with other people. Sorry for the dogs in the background.
That's okay.
But yeah, your supervisor sometimes may come off as this scary person that you can't talk to fluidly. But just a couple conversations to break down those walls, to establish that line of communication. You could become good friends outside of work, but your supervisor's a good person.
Thank you. So one of the questions I sometimes get from students is they're looking at different positions, and maybe that's part-time, temporary, full-time, whatever it is, and they have to research the organization. And so for our presenters, what do you do to research an organization before you apply maybe, or before you show up for the job interview, to know, is this really a place that I want to work? So any suggestions or comments from our presenters about that? What do you do to research? Gretchen?
I definitely suggest going to their website and looking for their budget or their 990, or go to GuideStar to get their 990. You want to make sure it's a financially healthy organization, or that you're willing to take the risk that your position won't be funded the next year. So look at that, look at their mission, see how. I also suggest going to their Facebook page. They'll often put new staff up, and you could see if there's a lot of staff turnover, and that would, sorry, that would be a reason to be concerned.
Thank you. Jill, any tips for research?
Just echoing Gretchen, going to their website and looking at their mission and vision, and kind of seeing what relates to you. Usually when I do my interviews, finding a piece of the mission or the vision that I relate to and that could, speak with my personal life, as well as reading through their impact statements and seeing if that's something that you want to work for. So is the impact you're making something that you're passionate about?
Thank you. Tori?
Once again, echoing off of both Jill and Gretchen, you want to be making sure that you're looking at their website, look at their mission, making sure that it kind of aligns with your goals, because it's going to be very difficult for you to work with an organization that you don't really believe in. Another big thing that I know I did is I looked and tried to research a little bit on their board of directors, some of the executive staff that work there, just to get an idea of kind of what their backgrounds are, how they fell into nonprofits, because their path into nonprofits is a lot different than ours. So just taking a look to see where their passions lie. And I also took a look at their events and all of that to see, kind of what events do they do and how do they run them.
Thank you. Kayla?
I am going to echo everybody. Definitely financials, I think, is number one, website. And then I really like to look at annual reports. I know that oftentimes annual reports are a lot of fluff and a lot of feel good, but I think if reading somebody's annual report makes you feel excited about the mission and the work that they're doing, and to you from an outsider perspective, you can see that it's impactful. I think that you will in turn be excited to go and work for their mission, because there are going to be a lot of opportunities. I'm going to turn off my video sometimes. That affects my audio quality. But if you feel excited and passionate about their mission, there's going to be times where your work is really taxing and add in a lot of extra hours. But at the end of the day, if you appreciate and know that the mission is helping people, animals, or the environment, or whoever it might be, then you're going to be more apt to be excited about your work there and the challenges that you'll face.
Thank you. Brandon, suggestions for research?
So I'm going to bring a little different perspective to this, in that working for the Egyptian Theater now, I never thought when I interviewed through DCNP for the internship that would be the only interview I went through before I was hired on there. So it might work out sometimes that you're in an internship that you just stay on afterward, but before you accept the position, like everyone else on the call has said, make sure that your time there has been worthwhile, that your values align with their mission. But you never know that you could be interviewing for an internship. It could be your first interview for your first internship, and that's the job that you get to stay with. So that's a different perspective.
Thank you. And to kind of related, but I don't know how many of you presenters have been part of hiring committees. So have you sat on the other side and had to interview people for any number of positions? And advice for our graduating seniors on, some skills they should highlight, some knowledge they should highlight, soft skills, things that you see the nonprofit sector really needs and that they should really pay attention to when they're applying for positions. Kayla?
I'm going to go ahead and say every interview that I've been a part of has some sort of fundraising component to it. So if you're interested in getting involved with fundraising, first and foremost, I think it's most important to give a nice firm handshake, look somebody in the eye, get their number, have some sort of a resume, do all the professional steps, which is not just exclusive to fundraising, but that's something that if you go and meet with a donor, they're going to want to make sure that you are representing their organization the best possible way that it can be. So definitely have all those little things checked off, and as silly as it sounds, practice. Look at yourself in the mirror as you answer questions for interviews and things like that, because I know that that's a big part of when we do our interviews. We just want to make sure that somebody feels confident talking about themselves and about the mission at hand, and definitely get to know it before.
Thank you.
That they serve. That's the most important, I think.
Thank you. No, those are really good tips. That your first impression is often, that physical face-to-face voice, body movements, whatever. I think they're really important. Tori, your suggestions for maybe getting that first position?
Yeah. So I think a big thing is don't write off all of your past experience, even if it's not necessarily in nonprofits. These part-time jobs that you're working do give you soft skills and show how you can be talking to the public and all of that. Also, I would definitely be prepared with some not really businessy sorts of questions. Some of our favorite questions to ask are to get to know about if you can fit into our culture. So like, tell us something that's not on your resume that's about you. That's a big one. That's a favorite one. We like to ask goofy questions. We have a big social enterprise that's Aspire Coffee Works. So we do like to ask people, what's their favorite kind of coffee? Are they a coffee or tea drinker? We like to ask fun questions like that see if they would be a good fit within our team. So we're not just necessarily looking at what we're not checking off a list to see what their experiences are. We want to know that you're the right person that we want on our team.
Thank you. And you guys, for those who haven't answered yet, I'm going to call on Gretchen next. But as you think about it for our presenters, are you doing Google searches to see what's out there online about people who apply for your positions? So if you want to answer that one, you can raise your hand too. But I'll go to Gretchen next.
Yeah, I definitely Google people before we even invite them for an interview. And it's not like, okay, you decided that you're going to be like shirtless at the beach in your profile pic. We don't care about that. But if there's like public pictures of you drinking heavily or part of some illegal activity, we're not going to call you. But with that, I have been in charge of hiring lots of people in my role at Family Service Agency previously. Those technological skills are really important. Being familiar not just with Office, but free online tools like Canva or PicMonkey or what have you, those are important. And even more important is knowing about the organization. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I've had several interviewees come in before that had no idea what we did at Family Service Agency. So if you're going to answer the phone and represent an organization, you better know what they're about.
Yep. So lots of do your homework in advance before you show up. Jill, go ahead.
So piggybacking off of Tori, a lot of our focus lately has been on culture and fitting into our company culture. So what are some of your core values and why? And what's your ideal company culture? So those sort of questions, as well as we're looking a lot into, what are your leadership qualities? What are your goals for this position and yourself? So not so much what you've done, but what you're looking to do.
Thank you. Brandon?
All right. So actually, the first year I was there at the theater for in my full-time role, I got to do the DCNP internship interview by myself. So it really came 360 really quick there. It's the only interview I've been able to do, but landed us a pretty decent intern that semester. Um, so I don't do a lot of the interviewing for the paid positions at the Egyptian. However, being the volunteer coordinator, we occasionally have had people come in that after we go through training, it's questionable whether they're going to be able to handle the position. We always give someone at least one opportunity to prove themselves. It's challenging when you're in the role of volunteer coordinator and you have some volunteers that just aren't a good fit. You're left with the decision of, okay, these people are donating their time, and I have to ask them to no longer come back. So there's some challenges that you have to think about too, that as a student, I never would have thought of having to fire volunteers or having that responsibility. So always thinking of what else is out there, because that's not one of the things I thought was out there.
So Brandon, while you're here, do you think that volunteering somewhere is a good idea if you think maybe I want to work for this organization or for a like organization, like I want to work in arts and culture, go volunteer there? Have you seen volunteers like that where they're like, I'm thinking about making this a career choice or doing something along those lines? Have you seen that, or would you encourage that for our students?
I would definitely encourage it. I don't want to say I wouldn't waste my time, but you have to be really cognizant of certain organizations that have volunteer positions available, but aren't necessarily hiring. Um, there's always that to think about. But yes, of course, if you can get hands-on experience in a position that you think you might want to go into, it's 100%. I encourage it 100% because if you go into it thinking it's going to be this way, and then okay, you spend 2 weeks volunteering and it's nothing what you thought it was like. Okay, well now you know you can walk away, and it's no sweat off your back.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what Jill and Kayla said. Is it's almost like deciding among a whole bunch of options, saying, well, maybe this is not what I want to do, rather than picking the one thing that you do.
Right.
Because I think that's harder, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So questions from our students. After hearing some of our presenters, do you have any additional questions that you want to ask them, get some honest advice about what you should be doing, or encouraging you to look in certain directions maybe you didn't think of before? You can type them into the chat, or kind of just raise your hand as we go. And if there's, as you're thinking about those, for our presenters, are there things that, oh, so Ruby does have a question. Awesome. Do you have any advice or professional opinions on starting the job search? With the COVID-19 happening, how are your organizations? Are they just saying maybe not right now and delay the job search, or start now and take that advice from the organizations? So should they still be applying? Tori, you want to take a crack?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. We actually just hired an events person, so we're definitely still we're not slowing down any. That's why I think it's really important that you do look at their financials. You'll be able to see if they are financially stable enough to withstand this sort of storm. I know at Aspire we've been kind of ready for not necessarily a worldwide pandemic, but we were definitely ready for something big to happen that would affect fundraising. So making sure that all of their programming, they're getting money in through programming and things like that's going to be really important. So I definitely encourage you to still be applying, and apply anywhere and everywhere. Especially to the places where you really care about. So I wouldn't let this deter you guys at all.
Thank you. Jill?
So echoing back, we are still doing interviews right now. We have put a hold on hiring, but we're doing those beginning interviews right now. We actually have a program intake specialist that would be part of my team. So if anyone's looking for an introductory position, it'd be with intaking applications and kind of coming up with systems. So that position's on our website. We also do have a couple of other positions within our restore that we may be hiring for. I think by the end of April, we're going to have a better idea of when we'll be able to hire those, but we are still doing interviews on applicants, phone interviews at this point in time. So definitely keep doing the search. Nonprofits are going to be still going to be looking for people after this is over.
And I put the link up to the Habitat page if you want to check the positions that are posted there.
Thank you.
Kayla?
Yeah, absolutely keep applying. We keep saying on our end and our team, we don't know how long this is going to last, but we can tell you that as soon as this calms down a little bit, things return back to normal a little bit, we will be hitting the ground running faster than usual. So that means everything, fundraising, hiring, everything, putting out information, posting events, things like that. So I think that's a lot of nonprofits mindset at the time. So definitely don't be afraid to apply once or follow up if you can. I know a lot of times they don't include email addresses or something to follow up with, but I think once things kind of return back to normal in a month or so, I wouldn't be afraid to shoot a quick email and just say, hi, I applied last month. I know with the uncertain times there was a lot going on, but I'd love to be considered for this position, and let me know if there's any other information that you need from me or something like that. I know personally that would be something that I would appreciate, as sometimes hiring does fall lower on the totem pole of immediate needs during something like this. But keep applying for sure.
Thank you. Brandon? Did you want to hiring going on right now? Oh, he's reconnecting. There we go. He's reconnecting. Brandon comes back. Any other questions from our students? Please put them in the chat so we can
All right, I think I'm
get
back.
to them. Yep, you're
All
back.
right. So if you go through an interview and they call you and say, hey, we're putting this hiring temporarily on hold, if for nothing else, it was experience interviewing, and that's a great opportunity to ask whomever you interviewed with, what you did well on, what they would have improved on. Granted, if they were going to reach out and hire you and now they just don't have that funding anymore because of what's going on, it's a little bit of a different situation. But if for nothing else, it's interview experience.
Thank you. On the NNGO site, we have a bunch of employment job boards. So I'm going to put the link in case you haven't been there. It's on our main page, but you can also check that out there, because I think a lot of them, and if you have others, please let me know and we'll add those to the employment resources. But everything that the presenters have said are a really good idea. When it comes to their financials, I consult with a lot of nonprofits. At a minimum, they should have enough cash on hand to last 3 months, and ideally 6. Some are up to 9, but I think 6 is really a sweet spot, because that's 6 months with no new revenues in, that they would have enough cash on hand. So if you look at their 990s, take a look at their assets and see what is actually in cash, unrestricted, versus maybe endowments and other things. That's one piece of it, but kind of going back to what Tori said, it's also where those dollars are coming from their revenue streams. So Aspire, they have a social enterprise, so they're getting revenue off of that. They also have program fees and some other things. But if you're an organization that's heavily reliant on government funding, or even grant funding from different foundations, like really dig into those revenue types, because that'll also indicate how susceptible they are to any kind of disruption, either in payments or even in continuation of those funds going forward. So again, how much cash they have on hand? Ideal, a minimum of 3, up to 6 would be preferred. And then look at the revenue distribution. And I think if you really want to make a positive impact in your interviews, drop some things that in terms of your own homework to prepare for those interviews. So use terminology that you've learned throughout the program, because you're in a rare program. There are not that many undergraduate nonprofit programs in the country. We're the only public program in the state of Illinois, the other one being DePaul. They're not quite like us, but that's it. And so most of what you're learning, a lot of it would take place in a graduate program, and you're coming out with an undergraduate degree. So highlight things and use that to your advantage kind of in an interview situation as you prepare. We're almost at 12, or about 5 to 12. Any further comments, suggestions that our presenters would like to share with our graduating seniors? Maybe that you wish you'd have known a month away from graduation. Yeah, go ahead, Kayla.
I just really want to encourage you guys to keep applying. I know Tori had hit on it too, but any nonprofit that you might be interested in or think sounds like something you'd be passionate in, definitely take the chance and apply. I'm also going to leave my LinkedIn in the comments, so please connect with me if you want to learn more about working for a cultural institution like the Arboretum, or working with in child welfare or anything. I often repost job postings that I know about, and sometimes it really does help to know somebody, even just in a really casual capacity. So please do not be afraid to reach out to me, and I'm sure a lot of our my fellow alumni are the same exact way. But definitely keep those communications open, and we're all a small but mighty community in the nonprofit industry, so we're always happy to help. So good luck.
And Kayla, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know that you had mentioned before, if any of our NNGO students are interested in maybe taking a physical break to come and walk the grounds at the Arboretum, that you could maybe get them a day pass, I heard.
Yes, so that was before last Friday, when unfortunately we just closed our grounds.
You just closed. We missed the window.
Yeah, exactly. But when that, again, when things calm down, I know the Arboretum is obviously first and foremost, looking out for the safety of and well-being of members and donors and staff, et cetera. But we really want to get people out on our grounds. Nature has a really good way of just being restorative and peaceful, and this is something that we all need right now. So I encourage you to, you can just look at beautiful pictures. I know a lot of great Arboretums are posting great pictures and videos of what's going on and what's blooming. So, I encourage you to do that in the meantime. But yes, for sure, if this all calms down, hopefully come May, I can send you over some passes. I don't exactly know when graduation is this year, but
Yeah. Well, now we're not going to have one in May. It's going to move to August. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
yeah. Gretchen, go ahead.
My first piece of advice is, when you are applying, always write the cover letter. That's the quickest way that we weed out applications when we get a ton, is people that didn't write a cover letter. We're not looking any further. I am going to put my email in the comments, and you can reach out to me with any questions about, my position as a finance assistant. If you want someone to bounce pieces of your capstone off of, I'm happy to do that. Nobody took me up on that the last time I did one of these presentations. I'm serious. I love to read those things. And also, don't panic. I remember being in your shoes and panicking because I couldn't find positions in the nonprofit field. But they will turn up, and if you have to work a retail job for 6 months, a year before you find a good fit, that's okay. You don't have to have your dream career the second you graduate.
Thank you. Good advice. Jill?
Another thing when you're looking for jobs is to not only look on the recruitment websites like ZipRecruiter and Indeed, but also going to those nonprofits that you are passionate about, to their websites. Sometimes they don't put the information or their job postings on a job board, but it's just posted on their website to where you can apply. So definitely look there. And like Gretchen said, don't panic if you don't find your dream job right away. I mean, I wasn't too sure about AmeriCorps before I signed on. I didn't know what it was going to be, if it was going to be a right fit for me, but just kind of, if an opportunity does present itself and you want to give it a try, feel free to, definitely take that opportunity.
Thank you. And Tori?
So I'm going to piggyback off of what almost everybody is saying. Don't panic right now. It might be about a year until you get, your job. And even then, don't worry about trying can get your dream job right away. You'll definitely fall into it, and you'll definitely find something that you're really passionate about. You'll discover a lot more about yourself, so kind of let that all happen and be open to those opportunities. Also, really keep in touch with a lot of your old professors and advisors right now. They're going to be a big resource and a big help moving forward, and they're great contacts to keep. And I'm also going to put down my contact information, so feel free to reach out to me if you guys have any questions for me, or if you just wanted to, like Gretchen said, if you wanted to bounce your capstone paper off of me too. So good luck, you guys. It's going to get better. Don't worry about it.
Thank you very much. And Julianne put some information about tonight is a professional development pop-up, so we'll have some informational interviews for those who want to participate in that. So I think if there are no other additional questions, I'm going to turn off